Hi, this is Rich Carlson. Welcome to another episode of the Art of Rope Work here at Canyons and Crags. Today, we're going to be talking about some ways to rig glue-in bolts for anchors. So grab your gear and a rope and follow along. I hope you enjoy watching and learning from my videos as much as I enjoy making them. And I hope you will take some time to visit my website, canyonsandcrags.com, to check out my hands-on workshops and the great gear available from my online store. There are basically two types of bolts used for setting up anchors. The first type is a mechanical bolt, and there are several different kinds. This is just one example. But what they all have in common is some form of an expansion sleeve that tightens up in the hole to give it security. The second type of bolt is a glue-in bolt. And again, this is just one example. There are many to choose from. But what they all have in common is they're basically an eye bolt with no mechanical parts to it. Placement involves drilling a hole slightly larger than the diameter of the bolt, partially filling the hole with an adhesive, and then placing the bolt. In virtually any situation, stainless steel glue-in bolts will outperform mechanical bolts by a wide margin. Yet it is rare to encounter them in the field. One reason is certainly the cost. The 14mm Petzl Bettenot currently retails for just under $37. The 10mm Colano retails for just under $20, and the Fixe wire glue-in retails for just under $15. And these prices are just for the bolt itself. They do not include the cost of the glue or the glue applicator. So the next time you encounter some of these babies in a canyon, think about the investment someone made in the anchor you are using. If you know who it was, you owe them a beer. Or 3. Because glue-in bolts are so rare, people seem to be wary of them. This photo was taken in the Jug, a section of Salome Creek in Arizona. The eye bolt in the center is a 10mm stainless steel Petzl Colano placed in granite using Hilti HY150 construction adhesive. I know that for a fact because a friend and I placed that bolt back in 1995 to facilitate rigging a retrievable safety line for people to traverse a shelf out to the actual rappel anchor. I will explain the safety line setup in a future video. I can only guess, but it seems that someone felt the glue-in needed to be backed up. It was completely unnecessary. I am confident that the glue-in bolt would hold thousands of pounds, more than the two mechanical backup bolts combined. Now this 3-bolt anchor seems to be creating a challenge for rigging webbing. Notice how all 3 bolts are now bent over, pointing downstream, no doubt caused by a log or boulder that was being carried down canyon during a flash flood. So you encounter these 2 glue-in eye bolts. Upon inspection, you determine that they do not move and the rock around them is sound. Now, how do you rig them? Anchors must be equalized and redundant and yada yada yada. So, you need to use some webbing to bring both legs down to a common focal point, right? Not necessarily. Maybe some chain. Stainless steel eye bolts are really strong, so maybe you should use some really strong stainless steel chain and bring the legs of the chain down to a common focal point. Either of those approaches is actually overkill, and in swiftwater canyons can create some serious issues. Rigging webbing or chain with a common focal point creates a net that can snag debris, logs, and boulders being carried down the canyon by water. One solution is to use 2 lengths of chain without bringing them together at a focal point. When not in use, there is no net. In use, the rope is passed through the bottom link in each chain. Be certain the links are large enough for your rope to retrieve smoothly. If the rope is too tight in the links, add an appropriately sized rapide at the end of each chain. Now let's consider if the chain is even necessary. The answer is no. This photo shows the rope being passed through both eye bolts from right to left. I added the repeller icon to make it clear that the rappel rope is the one on the left. It should be obvious that the bolt on the right will need to hold 100% of the load. That isn't a problem for a properly placed glue-in. But how much load will there be on the bolt on the left? The vertical rappel rope will be under tension, creating one vector. The horizontal rope between the bolts will also be under tension, creating a second vector. If the angle between the two vectors is 90 degrees, the load on the left bolt will be 140% of the load. If the load is 200 pounds, for example, the load on the left bolt will be 280 pounds. That bolt is basically functioning like a change of direction pulley. These numbers are based on theoretical mechanical advantage and do not account for friction. Technically, the bolt on the right should be oriented vertically, and the one on the left should be oriented at a 45-degree angle. That angle is a resultant vector, splitting the 90 degrees between the vertical and horizontal tension ropes. But if you orient the bolts at different angles like that, someone will come along who doesn't understand why you did it that way. They will assume you didn't know what you were doing and talk shit about you on internet forums. A compromise approach might be to orient both bolts slightly inward, maybe 20 to 30 degrees from vertical. That will also make people happy who insist on rigging the bolts with webbing. There can be issues running ropes directly through eye bolts, especially in sandstone canyons where sand clings to wet ropes, turning them into grinders. To prevent the eye bolts from wearing out prematurely, add a removable rapide to each bolt. The eye bolts protrude perpendicular to the rock, which aids in smooth rope pull. The rapides will lay flat against the rock and may cause ropes to bind, so don't stop there. Add a stainless steel rappel ring to each rapide to bring the orientation back to perpendicular with the rock. You now have a mini chain on each bolt. And what if you want to rig a releasable contingency system? Great idea, by the way. Clip your Canyon Quick Draw with an HMS carabiner on the lower end to the bolt on the rappel side and rig a Munter Mule overhand. Of course, you can also run your contingency system from a temporary sling connected to both bolts to be removed by the last person down, or use a releasable totem block or figure-8 block. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and please share it on your favorite social media. Thanks for watching.